Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahanaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Zaidam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishikam Vitam Scha Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyanajana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gorva Bhishtam Supurakam Guruganara Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanugam Govinda Vidam Ujwalam Varatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Mande Vishwagurun Shah Divyad Bhagavat Premna Vebija Pranam Devam Divyatanum Suchandabananam Balarka Chelan Sandrananda Puram Sadekavaranam Vairagya Vidyamburim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Banditam Shubharam Maraika Sharanam Nyashishvara Shridharam Vanshakopatarubyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavenibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Namah. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the hidden treasure of the sweet absolute. This is a commentary and translation into English of Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. She actually presented the Bhagavad Gita. It was presented in Bengali and then translated into English by, at that time, Bhakti Ananda Sagar Maharaj. So, this is chapter 5, Karma Sannyasa Yoga, the path of renunciation of action. Arjuna vacha sannyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha shamsasi yachshreya etayor ekam tanme bruhi sunischitam. Arjuna said, O Krishna, you speak of renunciation of actions, and then again you speak of the path of selfless action. Therefore, please tell me clearly which is superior. Arjuna is asking, well, Krishna, you speak of renunciation of actions, and then again you speak of the path of selfless action. Therefore, please tell me clearly which is superior. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nishreyasa Karavubo Tayortu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Visishyate. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nishreyasa Karavubo Tayostu Karma Samyasat Karma Yogo Visishyate. The Supreme Lord said both renunciation of action and the path of selfless action bring great benefit. Yet of the two, know that the path of selfless action is superior. Geya sa nitya sannyasi yono dveshti na kankshati nirdvanvo I mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchate. O mighty Arjuna, know that one who is free from attraction and aversion is truly renounced, though performing action. For one who is free from duality easily attains liberation from bondage. O mighty Arjuna, know that one who is free from attraction and aversion is truly renounced, though performing action. For one who is free from duality easily attains liberation from bondage. So we're performing action in Krishna consciousness, trying to serve the Lord and His devotees, the spiritual master, of course, as we're trying to satisfy them by performing seva, service. In fact, the name here of our ashram is the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram. So the emphasis is on service. And that service we're doing as with the idea that it will be pleasing to one spiritual master and service to the Lord. We're not bound to the results of our actions. Now, I know that sometimes somebody can say that they were trying to do a service nicely for the Lord and it didn't come out according to their expectations. Maybe they were cooking something and it didn't come out as they thought. Or maybe they went out to perform some action of preaching or soliciting collections for the temple or for the spiritual master, and they didn't have success, and maybe they feel a little despondent about that. But that doesn't, and it is true that we perform our actions and the results are according to the divine will or desire of the Lord. So we can't ultimately think that we can control the results, and somebody may be despondent. But still, I would not say that's the same as being attached to the fruits of the labor, because one is ultimately trying to present or offer something to the Lord, to one's spiritual master, and one has an expectation that I want to do this as nicely as possible. And maybe in the course of doing that, it doesn't come out according to one's expectations. That is a quite likely sequence, not unusual. But of course, one shouldn't become despondent by the action to the extent that one goes into a state of depression and is unable to perform anything for the next couple of days because they're so despondent by the result. And we can't imitate actions. We hear with Jagadananda Pandit that when he went to Bengal one time, and while he was there, he made some sandalwood oil that he brought back in a big clay jug for Mahaprabhu, and it was his intention that Mahaprabhu would accept his sandalwood oil. And very graphically, Mahaprabhu didn't. Well, it wasn't Mahaprabhu who was so graphic in the details. It was Jagadananda. Mahaprabhu told Jagadananda to take the oil and offer it in the Jagannath temple. I'm a renounced sannyasi. I won't wear this oil. And then Jagadananda said, "Who told you that I brought some sandalwood oil?" And then he took the jug of sandalwood oil and he smashed it in front of Mahaprabhu's, so that's one action. Then he went and locked himself in his room for several days. 3 days. Huh? 3 days. Yeah. So then Mahaprabhu had to come to him and say, "Please come and cook for me." And then Jagadananda cleaned up and cooked for Mahaprabhu, and he cooked for Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu, by the mood of Jagadananda, felt himself obliged to eat much more, many times more than what he would normally eat. And then Mahaprabhu also commented, "Oh, you cook so nicely when you're angry." So, I mean, these are divine pastimes. So you can see that we're not on that level, and we're not going to imitate these kind of pastimes. And sometimes we see somebody once has a particular service they want to offer to the Lord, and then they're just despondent by the results. But here it says, "O mighty armed Arjuna, know that one who is free from attraction and aversion is truly renounced, though performing action. For one who is free from duality easily attain liberation from bondage." So I would say even by that despondency, it doesn't indicate that someone is attached to the results, but they just had high expectations of a service that they could offer to the Lord, but not necessarily implying attachment. It might be obviously something wrong if somebody just goes into a state of depression and won't do anything after that. But this was something different with Jagadananda. It was on the plane of prema, on the plane of pure love for the Lord. Shankya yogo pritagbala pravadanti na pandita ekam api astita samyag ubayor mindate phalam. The path of renunciation, Shankya Yoga, and the path of selfless action, Karma Yoga, are considered separate paths by the unwise, but not by the learned. One who perfectly follows either of these paths will achieve the result of both. The path of renunciation, Sankhya Yoga, and the path of selfless action, Karma Yoga, are considered separate paths by the unwise, but not by the learned. One who perfectly follows either of these paths will achieve the result of both. And I believe that's also shown in the expression of Srila Rupa Goswami of Yukta Vairagya, of that the real renunciation is of one's own individual desire to enjoy the results, but an action can be on the plane of renunciation if it's favorable for the service of the Lord. So, as an example, we normally would consider to have a goal of accumulating money. We would consider that is something that we're not trying to do. But under the plane of Yukta Vairagya, we have to collect for the Lord because it's necessary for us to, it's necessary for us to serve the Lord and supply for the temple and the devotees. So some collection is necessary, but it's not being done. Normally somebody could say, well, money is the root of all evil. Well, if you're attached to money and you're just hoarding it and it's only for your own enjoyment, then it's said the places where the personality of Kali can reside are where there is, killing and eating of animals, slaughter of animals, and where there is gambling, where there's illicit sex, and mediating illicit sex, where there's intoxication going on, and gambling. And then it's also said where gold is being hoarded, because Maharaj Parikshit said that, the personality of Kali said to Maharaj Parikshit, well, you're not giving me any place to have any residence, because where will I be able to stay? And then as some condition it was said, well, where there is the hoarding of gold, you can stay there. So normally somebody can say, well, money is the root of all evil. And if it's just in the level of hoarding of gold or money out of some kind of avarice, just being selfish, keeping everything for oneself, then that is a place where Kali can reside. But if one is collecting money for the service of the Lord, that's a different consideration. Under that consideration, one may be rich in the morning and poor by the evening, because one's collecting and ultimately not collecting for oneself, but collecting for the service of the Lord. Not that one's, just an example. Yad shankyai prapyate stanam tad yogar api gamyate ekam shankyam cha yogam cha ya pashyati sa pashyati. Yat sangyai prapyate stanam tad yogar apigamyate ekam sankyam cha yogam cha ya pashyati sa pashyati. The state achieved by the renunciation of action is also achieved by the performance of selfless action. One who sees these two paths to be one and the same actually sees. The state achieved by the renunciation of action is also achieved by the performance of selfless action. One who sees these two paths are to be one and the same actually sees. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam raja ham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. Sarva dharmam, give up your attachment to just routine or prescribed actions. Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam raja, and surrender to me. And I will give you all protection. You don't have to be worried about that. So when Mahaprabhu is talking with Ramananda Roy, Mahaprabhu doesn't accept this very elevated verse as perfection, because just the renunciation of actions or activities without proper guidance by the association and instruction from the devotees is improper renunciation. So renunciation of actions and selfless action can be on the same level as Krishna is indicating here, when there is the proper preparation and instruction and understanding and consciousness of the practitioner. Then renunciation and selfless action, as it says here, will be one and the same. But otherwise, there's indication there by Mahaprabhu's statement that ekobaya age kohoar, that this is insufficient if there is not the proper consciousness of the candidate. But Krishna is here speaking that when one is properly engaged in devotional service and under the guidance of the spiritual master, we heard that towards the end of the 4th chapter, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. Krishna said that previously towards the end of the 4th chapter. So then if one is getting that proper instruction from the spiritual master, then renunciation and selfless action, they are on the same level. We can see that happens all the time with the devotees. I mean, the devotees, as I mentioned, the activities of places where the person of Kali is present, the devotees have no attraction for those things. And how? Because the Gita is explaining that by having, or as it said previously in this chapter, that about what were the words used? One who is free from attraction and aversion. We don't have any attraction to activities that are not favorable for devotion, and aversion, where we are not averse to doing things for the service of the Lord, which we would not normally do otherwise. For instance, I would personally not care what an astrologer told me that I should do or shouldn't do, because I don't want to necessarily be thinking about that if I'm performing an action in service of the Lord. I remember one time I said there were festivals coming up and there was some importance, and my only day I could go for preaching, I was going to South India. And I was traveling in a Jeep with books and everything. And it was Thursday. I tried to go earlier, but was not able. Things weren't ready, and then we were ready to leave on Thursday. And I said, well, Thursday is Brihaspati Barbel, the Srila Prabhupada, and I'm told it's not a good day to begin actions. And then Srila Prabhupada told me, my spiritual master, he followed all these considerations. And he said he carefully thought ahead and decided what he would do. But he told me, do you follow everything? And I said, no, I don't. And then he said, why just this then? And he said, no, you go, leave. And I left. And so that consideration is not there, and nor is it necessarily there for everybody. We also heard that Bhakti Sharanga Goswami Maharaj, he would go collecting and preaching on Brihaspati Barbel. He thought it was the best day to go preaching, especially. So there's different considerations. I won't analyze why, but but that was his consideration. But on Brihaspati Barbel, somebody gains and somebody loses, but that's not a consideration for the devotee, because the devotee is going out to perform service, and the devotee is not concerned with that. Especially collecting, what are you going to lose? So, and let's see. Verse number 6. Sannyasas tu mahabaho dukam aptum ayogata yoga yukto munir brahma na chirena digachati. Sannyasas tu mahabaho dukam aptum ayogata yoga yukto munir brahma na chirena digachati. O mighty hero, without selfless action, mere renunciation of action is the cause of sorrow. But the wise man who engages in selfless action swiftly attains to the Absolute. O mighty hero, without selfless action, mere renunciation of action is the cause of sorrow. But the wise man who engages in selfless action swiftly attains to the Absolute. Yeah, so we can see that without selfless action, mere renunciation is the cause of sorrow. We see that. Now so many people in this present crisis, they're forced to stay at home and not be active, and people cannot handle that. It's a cause of great sorrow for them that they can't attend to their normal mundane activities. But someone who is acting without concern for the result, then that person is not so bothered by having to give up so many things which would be considered desirable in this mundane world. And we can say, somebody could say, but you are also staying at home, you're also going through so many difficulties with this, aren't you someone in sorrow or suffering? I would say, I wouldn't use the word sorrow. It's not like I'm, sitting in my room and crying about the situation. In the sense that for me, I'm here. I'll just say my own personal feeling. I'm here in this, this beautiful Seva ashram. And if it weren't a lockdown, sometimes I lament a little bit that I'm not active enough, And that's when there's no obligation for me to be active. So I'm, by nature, I'm very happy being here. I feel myself very thankful to be in such a beautiful atmosphere. And if even somebody could say, well, I'm not in the countryside or anything like that. Yes, I understand. But if you're in the association of devotees, then you're fortunate. Yeah. So, Almighty Hero, without selfless action, mere renunciation of action is the cause of sorrow. But the wise man who engages in selfless action swiftly attains to the Absolute. So I feel all these things are comprehensible to one who's engaged in devotional service. These words may be talking about the path of renunciation of action. But I've always felt that way. I always felt from the very beginning when I first came into this mission, I always felt that everyone I knew, from the married community, the grihastas, to the children, I always felt that they had some level of understanding and detachment and wisdom. It didn't matter that they weren't formally renunciants, but they seemed that way to me, even by their appearance. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutat mabhutatma kurvan api nalipyate. Even by appearance, one time I flew to China and they lost my luggage, and I didn't have any sannyas robes to put on. So Yudamanyu was there, and I wore his white dhoti and kurta, which was so big for me. I was swimming in it, but and maybe a saffron. I sometimes just wore a saffron T-shirt. But so I remember that Srila Govinda Maharaj once said, he's on the, Goprit Vevaranam, we are entering into the family of the Lord, and Srila Govinda Maharaj said, we are all family men. We are all like grihastas, even the sannyasis. We are like that, because we're all in the family of the Lord. And there I was wearing Yudamanyu's white cloth, and the devotees were taking pictures of me. And I thought, I hope this it doesn't appear. Of course, I'm sure it appeared all over Facebook or something. Not that you should look for that, but I thought it was... Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvan api nalipyate. The clean-hearted person thus engaged in yoga controls his mind and senses, becoming filled with affection and compassion for all beings. Although fully active, he is never implicated by any action. The clean-hearted person thus engaged in yoga controls his mind and senses, being filled with affection and compassion for all beings. Although fully active, he is never implicated by any action. Well, in this respect, I remember the description of a Vaishnava, and it says, well, that would be especially of some special souls. And it says, soft like a rose, but hard like a thunderbolt. You've heard that expression? Soft like a rose, but hard like a thunderbolt. So, this is what I think of my teachers, the acharyas. They're soft like a rose because they are. They're compassionate. I really feel that they're compassionate for all living beings and full of affection. But hard like a thunderbolt. They're not pushovers. You cannot, Srila Govinda Maharaj said he said, he said, his fault that he says, I believe everybody. So it is true. He had faith in everybody, and if someone expressed sincerity to him, then he had some trust for them. But I remember there was one time some devotees in the Mott in Navadip, and they stayed for a little time, and when they left, they highly I think it was 2 persons. They were actually a couple of persons from devotees, but not initiated, but devotees from France. And when they left, they were highly praising Govinda Maharaj. This was in Navadip. And then Govinda Maharaj said, I am not so easily affected by this kind of praise. And he said, if they're so full of high praise, why didn't they take initiation? Which is just a very objective viewpoint. They hadn't been initiated. One would think, if you really are with somebody who's an exalted soul like Govinda Maharaj, then why aren't you taking up some serious commitment to Krishna consciousness? And then he passed on some message to the Calcutta ashram about how to handle these persons, like expecting something from their part, which is, so I'm just saying, soft like a rose, but also not hard like a thunderbolt, because there are some times when it's necessary to apply some standard. And that's just, okay, 8 and 9. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvavid pashan shrinvan sprishan chigran ashnan gachan swapan swasan pralapan vishrijan grinan unmisham nirmishanapi indriyan indriyarteshu vartanta itidarayan. The realized karma yogi performs the activities of seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, speaking, evacuating, grasping objects, blinking the eyes, and so on, and he understands my sense organs, eyes, ears, skin, nose, and tongue, function in relation to their respective objects of form, sound, touch, smell, and taste. Thus he considers, I do not perform any action at all. And that's certainly true, that the objects reacting with their sense objects, that's going on, and I myself, as the performer of action, well, not that we think that ultimately we're the doer, but we are in fact engaged in service of the Lord. So we'll think these are the objects these are the senses meeting up with their sense objects. I'm not doing anything. So then the question is, how will I be able to do something on the plane of devotion? In this world, where is the activity for the soul? Just by the action of the senses meeting up with the object of the senses. Just like, and here, what are these? What do you mean by that? The senses mean, well, it's just been explained. Seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, speaking, evacuating, grasping objects, blinking the eyes, and so on. Seems to me a pretty complete list, how the senses are meeting up with the objects of the senses. My sense organs, ears, eyes, ears, skin, nose, and tongue function in relation to their respective objects of form, sound, touch, smell, and taste. Thus he considers, I do not perform any action at all. So, but then there is action for the soul, and that's on the plane of devotion. So I'll read one more verse. Brahmani Araya Karmani Sangam Chaktva Karotiya Lipyate na Sab Papena Padma Patram Ivambasa. One who, though living in this world, selflessly offers all his actions to the Supreme Lord, is not polluted by sin, as a lotus leaf remains on the water, yet is untouched by it. One who, though living in this world, selflessly offers all his actions to the Supreme Lord, is not polluted by sin, as a lotus leaf remains on the water, yet is untouched by it. Though in our Mat logo, the water is compared, is said to be the mercy of Gurudev. Is the lotus water is resting upon that. It's getting nice sun rays from the Lord, and it's getting and it is growing and everything. But the sun can burn the lotus if it does, were not for the protection of the water. So ultimately, one who, though living in this world, selflessly offers all his actions to the Supreme Lord and is not polluted by sin, as the lotus leaf remains on the water, yet is untouched by it. But we are resting there on the water of the Gurudev's mercy. As far as here, as the lotus leaf remains on the water, it is untouched by it. So you can say we're resting on the mercy of getting nourishment from the water. But the water is not causing us to become, the water is protecting, it's not damaging. It's not causing any harm or anything. That's what it's meaning by untouched. It's not being, the lotus is not damaged by being in the water. Normally, something is in the water, it can drown, right? Or it can be ruined by being in the water, but the lotus leaf not. It's in the shelter of the water. Okay, one more verse, then we'll finish this page. Kayena manasa bhujya kevalar indriyarapi yogina karma kurvanti sangam chaktvatma shudaye. By giving up attachment, the karma yogis perform action merely through the body, mind, intelligence, and even the senses for self-purification. By giving up attachment, the karma yogis perform action merely through the body, mind, intelligence, and even the senses for self-purification. Yes, mind, intelligence, words, actions, thoughts, everything occupied in the service of the Lord. So I'll stop here for tonight, and tomorrow's Friday, so tomorrow will be, the program will be broadcast by Jairam from his house, and we'll see what is to become of our Saturday program. Normally we have films on Saturday. I'll have to see. Films of Gurudev on Saturday. I'll see what some of our devotees are traveling. I'll see if that will be happening. Okay? Well, this mic hasn't even been on.
Really? We'll be out there.
Anyway, I have this mic on.
Yeah.
It wasn't on out there,
Okay.
but I don't know if it was it recording here?
Yeah, it's recording here.
Oh,
And I have this, what they call a lavalier mic on my Uttariya here. Do you want to play Kartos? Okay, one of you. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Jaravaya Manavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Kanadara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatha Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath H.I. Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Gaite Vignana Shabishta Puran H.I. Gosai Charmui Taradas Kasabar Padarenu Mora Panchagras Tader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame Janame More Abhilas H.I. Gosai Jarmui Taranas Kasamar Padarenu Mora Panchagras Tader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanima Janame Janame More Abhilas H.I. Gosai Jabe Braje Koilavas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Korea Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Narathamana Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Garanga Gandharvika Giridhara Juki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Charyasta Tara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajaka Charyasta Tara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Rakshira Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Sananta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Namachar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Shri Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Premsigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Bhagwat Ki Jai. Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vishvavaranya Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Acharya Vrinda Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ram Mayapur Ki Jai. Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Saparshada Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Shri Koladvip Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Sokel Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Sevashram Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan Sham Kana Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Shri Bhakti Pavan Janan Maharaj Ki Jai.